point?
At this point, we'll take questions. But I also want to make a statement before we go on to questions. To the people who live on streets like these throughout the city of New York, I want them to know, a new administration, my administration, we don't govern by press conference. Yes, we're here today to answer questions, but I want to assure them it's not just about today, it's what we do tomorrow, the next day, and the next day. So you're going to see a different tone, a different era of collaboration. And I served as a council member for 14 years, so I've been in the streets for a long time to know what it takes to get the job done. You don't just show up one day, you show up until the job is done. And with that, we'll take questions. Marcia?
I'm going to go.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Governor.
Marcia.
Hey, Jimani.
Also want to acknowledge the presence of our public advocate, Jimani Williams, has joined us as well, and Senator John Liu has joined us. Can't hear him. Yeah. Excellent questions. Those are my questions this morning when I spoke to the leadership at the MTA. Here's what we need to do. We need to identify the areas where we have vulnerabilities on our streets, where the drainage systems are not functioning properly and they're close to the entrance of a subway. And we need to be able to fix those first so we don't get a situation where the drainage system, the sewer system can't handle the volume and then the water just creates a river down the steps and into the subway system. I think that's our first priority. I know that's my first priority. So I want to also have an after action report on this. What did we know? When did we know what we had? What information do we have? Were there any intelligence failures in terms of our preparedness? I know I deployed resources yesterday morning, but we did not know that between 8:50 and 9:50 p.m. last night that the heavens would literally open up and bring Niagara Falls level water to the streets of New York. Could that have been anticipated? I want to find out. Is that something we should have known in advance? And the question is, should we have shut down subways earlier? You have to realize many people are already on the subways. We shut them down. They're trapped underground. That is not an option, but I want to assess why we don't stop people from new passengers from going down the stairs into them. It's all should be about evacuation, not bringing new people into the system at the time. And your first question was? Yeah, there were storm warnings, tornado warnings throughout the evening, but I'll see whether or not more could have been done. That's a good question. Yes.
Governor, two questions. You, Governor Hochul, not to know first question. Could you talk about any damage at MTA rail yards and other bus depots? And then a question from Mayor Blasio.
Yeah, we have damage. We have damage, and I'm going to be out visiting some of the sites right now. And we'll be embedded with FEMA personnel. This is what happens first. Everything has to settle down, stabilize, make sure we're protecting life and property, job number one. Number two, within a few days, we go out there with the FEMA crews, literally add up the extent of the damage, file for our declaration with the federal government, and this is, again, what President Biden assured me. He said, Kathy, I'm going to do this for you. You tell me what you need. So we're prepared to take all those steps, starting right now.
And from Mayor de Blasio, we just heard from a neighbor who said they have been asking for help about the sewers. Can you, and some maybe, I saw DEP, DDC, DOT, can you explain why this was seemingly such a failure on the part of the city where you have streets, neighborhoods not even in flood zones, basements flooding, people couldn't get out, they weren't notified. Walk us through that.
Let me get our DEP commissioner, I think is here, Vinny Sapienza, who can speak to the specifics. Have him come over. Look, as you heard from Congressman Meeks and from Borough President Richards and Councilmember Miller, over the last few years we made a $2 billion investment in addressing the infrastructure problems of Southeast Queens, including the sewer problems. This is a tragically very long-standing problem, and one of the things that became clear was we were going to have to make an extraordinary investment to address it. As you've heard, that investment is having impact, but it's not complete. It's been going on for years. It will take some more years to finish. In terms of the impact of the investments here in this immediate area, Commissioner Vinny Sapienza, DEP.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Okay.
I can do it.
Yeah, so thanks. So a couple of things. One is the rate of rainfall that occurred was just really extraordinary. Councilmember Miller mentioned the storm we had, a couple of weeks ago with the remnants of Henri, which was about the same total amount of rainfall that fell, but this all fell really within a very short window, few hours, and I think that was a big difference. As the mayor said, we recognize in this area of Southeast Queens, an investment was needed. It was long overdue. The mayor announced a $2 billion commitment a few years back, and that work is well underway.
In terms of flooding in Woodside and Forest Hills that caused people to die, how do you explain the failure there?
Yeah, so we're going to do that full hydraulic assessment, but rainfall rates were really extraordinary and far exceeded the capacity of the system. Anything over 2 inches an hour, we're going to have trouble with.
Last question, sorry, to Gloria. Last question to Gloria.
Gloria?
Last question to
If I
Gloria.
could just follow up on Katie's question, because you are all talking, and Governor, for you, but for all of you as well, you're talking about how this is a warning call and a warning, but the fact is we've been having these events, and people here are talking about how this happens all the time. We've had 2 hurricanes in the last couple of days, and you're talking about the need for investment. But what do you say to people who are here right now, aren't sure if the next time it rains a lot, that they're going to be in the same position that they were last night, and that their lives are in danger?
I have been to so many catastrophic flooding events from Lake Ontario to Long Island to now to the city. So no, this is not unusual anymore. Anyone who says it's once in a century, once in 500 years, I'm not buying it. This has to be considered the normal course of business. So we need to take steps to prepare. We should have evacuation plans that every single homeowner knows about. What you do when the waters start rising. Is our communication system adequate to let people know in homes and on subways that this is dangerous? Are alerts going out on people's cell phones? How do we communicate, and are we doing a good enough job? Because I'm not going to stand here and guarantee it won't happen again tomorrow. I don't know that. But I know we need to do much more in our resiliency, addressing climate change, and we have an aggressive program that I'm going to even take to the next level. But that's long term. That's not going to help the people on the street. I'm not going to pretend it will. What I'm talking about is letting them know we've got their backs. We'll help them heal. We'll get them the resources from the federal government once they get that declaration, and let them know we're not satisfied either. This is not okay with any of us.
Yeah, and let me add, excuse me, Governors. Gloria, to your question, I think we now understand that every attempt at projection, bluntly, is failing us. Let's be clear. We're getting from the very best experts projections that then are made a mockery of in a matter of minutes. What I want to work with the governor on, and by her comments you can see she's already there, we need to start communicating to people that we should assume things are going to be much worse in literally every situation. Yesterday morning, the report was 3 to 6 inches over the course of the whole day, which was not a particularly problematic amount. That turned into the biggest single hour of rainfall in New York City history with almost no warning. So now we've got to change the ground rules. From now on, what I think we do is tell New Yorkers to expect the very, very worst. It may sound alarmist at times, but unfortunately it's being proven by nature. The infrastructure investments, look, $2 billion for Southeast Queens is a big deal. But what we're seeing is we're going to need more than we ever possibly imagined. Thank God, for the first time in our lifetimes almost, the federal government is finally truly committed to infrastructure spending. But I don't think it's too little too late. I think it would have helped us a hell of a lot more a few decades ago, but we're going to be playing a lot of catch up. But we're talking not billions, tens of billions, even hundreds of billions to really be able to make people safe.
Let me just say one thing on that. The $3.5 million that we're trying to get through in the reconciliation bill is to deal just with that. That's why that's such a big issue in Washington, D.C. Not just the 1.8 for infrastructure, but when we're talking about climate change, when you're talking about housing, when you're talking about making sure that we have the resilience for the future, not for today, just for today, but for the future, we must get this $3.5 trillion bill done. And that's what it's all about in Washington, D.C., and we're coming together to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.
We just heard the mayor say there's a strike connection.
Who are you asking?
Can we get an update on the victims?
Do you have the specifics?
Just first, our hearts go out to all the victims. It's an unimaginable loss for New York City and for Queens. Right now, and we pray that the number does not go up further, we have 9 confirmed victims. 8 of the 9 victims are in the borough of Queens. 8 of the 9 victims also took place in residential homes in basements. The latest victim that we have is a individual that passed away after a vehicle accident on the Grand Central Parkway, and that individual was discovered in the back seat of the car within the last hour. So again, we pray that the number does not go up from there, and certainly in the NYPD and all city workers, our hearts go out to all the victims for this terrible tragedy.